Hi, everybody. Craig Shacklett here with URComped and Trio CRM. We have got a very special guest today, Juan Romero, CEO and co-founder at Volante Software. Juan, thank you for being here.
I appreciate your time. It's been a great experience interacting with you over the course of the last couple of weeks, and we're really excited to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we connected. I can't remember how or I think I connected with you on LinkedIn. You may commented on something. I'm like, I clicked. Like, man, this software looks kind of cool. Um, we're both doing interesting things, like disrupting maybe an old. I shouldn't say old industry. I mean, casino's always evolving, but we're bringing a new take to it. So I think we took to each other pretty quickly. We've had some great conversations. So I'm glad you found time to hop on the podcast, video, whatever we do this. We distribute on multiple channels, so I always have a hard time putting it in a box. But thank you for being on here, Juan.
Yeah, anytime, man. I've enjoyed our conversations, and I look forward to what we're going to talk about today.
So at a high level, maybe before we get into everything, just what does Volante Software do?
So we create operational software for the slot departments in casinos, right? So we're basically looking at the day-to-day processes, anything that can help a slot machine stay available to your patrons as much as possible. That's what we're specialized in doing, and working with organizations to kind of vet out those processes and give them technology to be able to do them at a much higher level of efficiency and availability.
We're going to get back into Volante and what you guys do in your specialties later, but as backing up, how did you get into gaming?
Well, so it was actually my first job. So I graduated, from college in 2002, and I actually got picked up by a local property here in New Mexico to work in the IT department. So I started off as an IT technician, basically doing help desk, setting up computers, doing all that fun stuff, before the internet was so prevalent. So running around with a notepad and trying to, fix these systems a lot is really what I did. From there, I went into system administration, so doing more stuff on the server side, the installation side. And within a couple of years, I was fortunate enough to become an IT director. And at that point was responsible for, the capital and operational aspects of the IT department, along with all the deployments and the support and maintenance. During that time period, I was fortunate enough to pick up a second title and did some major project management for the property. So whatever department had something really big going on that required interface from multiple facets of the organization, they would pull me out of the IT role, and I was able to facilitate those processes. So gaming just kind of was the first thing I ever did, and it was just really exciting, and it was so much opportunity, right? And so many different avenues that you could go in. It was a great place to start my career.
Oh, I'm with you. I started my career out of college in gaming too, and it's like I can't imagine an industry more fun just because it touches on, like, you got great restaurants, you got great shows, you got this cool environment. It's like gaming touches so much. It's awesome. So I get how you got that bug. So these big projects, what's an example of, like a big departmental wide or multi-departmental wide project that you got tasked with early on?
Yeah, believe it or not, the one that it doesn't sound like as high level from the outside, but trust me, it was the biggest pain, was actually recarpeting the slot floor. So the amount of moving parts and vendors and compliance aspects, operational aspects that we had going into the coordination of staying open, and basically the general manager set like a percentage aside of what games could be down on a daily basis. So what we did was we recarpeted the floor, redid all the walls and some design elements as it was going on, and basically, having all of these moving parts all moving in one cohesive, or as cohesive as you could get it, movement towards the path of completely doing it was, it took us about, I think we set aside 2.5 months, and I think we did it in 5 weeks. And it was just a testament to the amount of work that really the slot personnel put in, and the facilities personnel, to just really, we had it dialed in to where it was, step A, this, step B, step C, step D, vendors coming in, the gaming commission worked hand in hand with us, and we were really able to kind of cruise through that thing. And it was, I even had vendors and people on the gaming side that were going, there's no way you guys are going to do this in that amount of time. And we did it in, a little more than half of the time that we had allotted.
Now, as you're doing that and just realizing what a bear of a project, did you ever think like, man, were the old carpets that bad? Why couldn't we have just left those in?
They were that bad and they needed to come out. But yeah, but
Yeah.
there were times that I was thinking I didn't really think that, putting in new carpet was going to be this much of a hindrance. But when you're talking about a 24/7 operation with all the various, organizations that had input, it was pretty monumental.
So then connect the dots. How did you get from there, rising up through IT and then taking on big projects to starting your own company?
I think the catalyst was I worked at that property for about 7.5 years, and it was great. Like I said, it was a smaller property, so it wasn't like heavy in resources. And what was great about that was for someone who was starting out in their career, I really had access to a lot of things that most people don't, right? In large organizations, people tend to kind of specialize or get sucked into a role. At the property that I worked at, if I volunteered, I could be a part of anything, whether it was marketing committees, budget committees, stuff on the operational side, the finance side, the slot side. It was like, we don't have a million people. We need stuff done. And so that really kind of set the foundation for me. So after spending 7.5 years doing that, I actually moved on and I ended up at a software house. So a shop here in Albuquerque, we made software for the Department of Energy. So the large laboratories here in New Mexico, Sandia, Los Alamos, Oak Ridge National Laboratory in the East, West Coast, huge deployments. And, when I was in gaming, most things were support oriented, right? It was maintenance. It was like, how do we train people? How do we keep these servers running? How do we keep these products running? But when I went to the organization that we actually made software, it was really a look under the hood, right? It was the ability to go, wow, the whole time I was in gaming, it was like, don't touch it, you'll break it. And now I see the way it works on the back end and we shouldn't be scared of it, right? So really it was like this huge, like this thing clicked for me and it was like, man, so much wasted time. We could have been doing so many of innovative things. And, really what we were doing was kind of taking other people's ideas and products and putting them in use, best case scenario, when we could have done that and really, broken things forward and pushed the whole industry forward. So, we could innovate and really the environment in gaming was primed for that. And so that was kind of the catalyst was looking under the hood and kind of seeing what could be.
So you, like you mentioned, you're dealing with mainly other people's products in a support role. You go to another outside of gaming where you're creating software. You see all this potential. So then what was the spark where you're like, I got to get back into gaming and create software? Like, what was that?
Yeah. So the real jump was, working really closely. And like I said, I had access to all these other departments, right? So working with the slot department and seeing that really, there's two really big chunks of that budget, right? And we all know this, it's marketing and slots. And rightly so, right? You have the product that drives the patrons to there and then, or excuse me, you have the product for the patrons and then you have the marketing, which drives people to the property, right? And so those were always the two biggest buckets of the budget. And looking at it, I couldn't believe that on the slot operations side, something that was so integral to us making a profit, they were running around with paper everywhere. Everything they did was paper based. And it was like, not only did they have the budget to put these things into play, but, if we really applied some technology to this and a little bit of, hand in hand between the operations and a tool, we could really change the game. And I felt that then, and I feel that now. And so, we'll talk a little bit about the product later, but that's where the first, iteration of Slot Track came from, was seeing all these cabinets and going, there's a way better way to do this. Now that I've seen this at a much higher scale, through the laboratories, it's easy. Let's go do it.
So this is something you already had the idea kind of for it when you were at the casino. You go to the software company outside the gaming industry, and you're like, then you saw how creating software wasn't that impossible, and then you just acted on the ideas that you had from before. And so, did you launch one product first, or how did you get that? I'm sorry, I loved hearing like the Genesis stories. I love hearing entrepreneurial stories. So how did it go, like creating that first product and then getting it into the first casino?
Right. So the thing is, like, and this is typical of the conversations we've had thus far, is like, to me, it starts with a mindset, right? So I had this idea for what we wanted to do. Then it was a matter of bringing the right people into the fold. So I was fortunate enough to work with the co-founder of Volante Software, Dustin Hodges, and essentially SlotTrack, which is our current offering and the only thing that we focus on, actually started at a happy hour on a napkin. And I have the napkin somewhere. I wish I had them framed so I could show them to you. But essentially, taking that idea and merging his technical know-how with, what I felt was the business need and the value proposition. And it really came out in 4 cocktail napkins, And so we had a couple gin and tonics and we talked about it. And the next day he started building out a framework and I started looking for money. And, the rest is, I call it 10,000 hours later, because that's what it certainly feels like.
Well, I'm in good company then, because Kale and I, my business partner, I pitched him the idea at the bar because I didn't know how to code. And then he's like, all right, good idea. But all great technology companies in the gaming space start in bars, apparently.
Yeah, listen, that may be an excuse, but that's where I go to do my best thinking. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So before we get in more to kind of what you guys do, Volante Software, tell us about the name, because I love this story.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite books of all time is Good to Great. It's a book by Jim Collins, right? And really what it is it's a study of companies that are, right? So in the same industry, about the same size, in the same time period. And really what the book is it's a study of what were the attributes that made one set of companies really rise above the others while they either stagnated or went away, right? And so 2 of the main concepts that he talks about in there are the doom loop and the flywheel. So the doom loop is this continuous, kind of chaotic change, thinking that the next huge thing that you do is going to lead to some significant breakthrough, right? So I call it shiny eye syndrome, right? You're just running all over at everything that shines. And I think we all kind of have, the propensity to fall into that sometimes. So you have the doom loop. Well, on the other side of that, you have the flywheel, right? And so you think of a flywheel as this very heavy mechanical, type device. And essentially you start pushing it. And when you push, it doesn't move all too much. So you got to continuously push and push and push. And eventually it's going to build up enough, momentum that it's going to move so much faster with the same amount of effort. And so that leads to a strategic breakthrough that's far more organic, right? So to people from the outside, they go, it happened overnight. Volante and SlotTrack came out of nowhere. No, it's been this, concentrated effort to one end. And that really is the methodology for everything we do, is we want to make sure that we're focusing on SlotTrack, we're focusing on our mission, and we're, slowly pushing that cog until it will eventually, reach its potential. And so Volante is the Spanish word for flywheel, and that's why we named our company Volante Software.
Love it. I love that book too.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while. I need to go back and read it. I'm inspired.
Yeah, you got to read all 3 of them, man. Yeah, it's 3 of them that kind of all go together.
I've got a friend of mine that knows him, Jim Collins, from the guy's a big rock climber. And my buddy's like a world-class rock climbing guy. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So besides your philosophy, this flywheel philosophy of just constant iteration, getting better, what's different about what Volante offers to other companies in a crowded slot or software space in the slot realm?
Yeah, so I think, most of the solutions that are currently out there, and we all know, there's a series of big names that produce software for organizations, and they kind of have monopolies, right? Especially over the last 7 years or so, a lot of them have merged or been bought out. Really, to me, they focus more on a couple different aspects, which is the player experience side, right? Whether it's marketing software through video head-ends, interactions, point of sale, those kinds of things, is like, what is the product and what does our technology do that facilitates that? And then you have the big slot accounting side of things, right? That we need to do to keep track of our revenue and make sure we're compliant and all those other kind of things. So there's this large gray area that we really attack, which is, again, what are the day-to-day paper-based operational things that center around slot machines, right? Whether it's work orders, whether it's slot files, mill logs, progressive management, contracts, and how can we take all of those various aspects and put them into a single solution using, fast, scalable, and intuitive technology to put the right information in the right people's hands. And really that's where our focus is, and that's what we're trying to do for the gaming industry. And to a large extent, we've been pretty decently successful at that so far.
So you touched actually real quickly on kind of bullet points on problems you tackle. So you have a lot of different modules. We don't necessarily have time to go into all of them, but maybe you could tell us about one or two that have kind of real obvious ROI for casinos.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, again, and everything starts with mindset. So everything we do has to be fast, scalable, and easy to use, right? So you've seen our product and our demos. If it doesn't meet those three criteria, it's probably not a good fit for what we're trying to do. We currently have 7 modules in production and 2 that are in development right now. And really, again, they just all touch those various operational aspects. So like inventory, we want to look at the total cost of machine ownership, right? That'll help with not only not having stale inventory, but keeping your games up. So game availability is a big aspect there. And then even bigger than that, in my mind, is giving operators the data for negotiations with vendors, right? On both the purchasing and the maintenance side, is to go, this is really what a slot machine is costing us. We know what the capital outlay is, but what's this costing us on a day-to-day basis? Now you take something like the inventory and combine it with our electronic mill log or with work orders, and now we're getting a huge picture of not only what is the capital outlay for that game, but what is the cost of part contribution to keep that game up and running. And when you get into the mill logs and you get into the work orders, you're talking about what's the labor component. So we can really give you a huge 360. So when someone comes in and says, hey, Craig, I'm going to give you this smoking deal on these boxes, you can go, well, that's great, but look, they've cost me X amount in labor and hard costs in the last 12 months. And yeah, they're generating this much in revenue, but it's costing this much just to keep them up and running. And so, that really is our aim, to try and provide that full high level picture by combining all of these modules.
So going back to, I was asking about your Genesis story, the origin of Volante. What was the first problem you tackled? And then what was it like selling it into the first casino?
Yeah, so the first thing that we put into production was the electronic slot file, right? And so basically taking all those electronic slot records and making them not only electronic and tracking the machine lifecycle from the day that it comes into property through every move, conversion, warehouse, any changes that happen until it's eventually parted out, right? And so traditionally they have these huge, rooms full of files, or they have some sort of homegrown solution to try and keep track of it electronically. And it was just, disparate mediums and spread across this huge, it wasn't accessible, right? And so working with the property here in New Mexico, I kind of went to them with this concept, and it seemed like the lowest hanging fruit, right? I knew that everybody needed to maintain those files, and how could we do it way more efficiently? So, our largest customer, or excuse me, our longest tenured customer with that particular module is about 5.5 years, and they've never had a audit related finding related to configuration management since they put our system in. And their audits went from taking, hours to days to weeks to prepare, to now they do nothing. Everything is in our system, and they basically give one login. And so it was that kind of moment where, you had this conceptual idea, you worked with someone to put it into play, we got it into use. And then when we saw what the effects were, after the fact, after it had gone into production, it was just like, wow. And immediately, as soon as the customer started seeing that, they were like, all right, we need this, we need that, we need this, what else can we add to this? And, so it's been this continuous push, but that was the first experience. And we've been very fortunate. I mean, we've worked with some crazy innovative properties that are continuously wanting to push the envelope.
That kind of leads into my next question. How do you and your team come up with the ideas for these different modules?
Yeah, it's crazy, but where we're at right now is really spending a lot of time with our customers, right? So I don't care what that costs us. Having those feet on the ground and interacting with every single level of kind of the chain within a given process is really what helps us. And it's interesting. So the ideas come twofold, right? I mean, obviously people will gain perspective from what we're currently doing and go, this other process is very similar in this way. Can we do this here the same way we did that? And it's like, yeah, of course we can do that. Is it a grid? Is it records? Is it some workflow? And is it reporting? Then yeah, we can figure out a way to do that. So we get a ton of requests that way. But what's really helped us is understanding the underlying processes that, are causing issues on a day-to-day basis, and being at the property with the people that are working is like, they'll say something and we're like, have you ever thought about this? Using our expertise on the software development side and going, well, what if we did this? And they go, what did you just say? I go, yeah, well, what if we did this and this and this? And then before you know it, we have a full-blown module that's being wireframed and eventually being developed and beta tested and rolled out. So, but the most important thing there for us is being in tune with all the levels, right? Not just one. So it's from the technicians on the floor to the analysts, to the business managers, to the slot VP, to the accounting personnel, and understanding what hands they play in each part of the process that I think really is a differentiator for us.
I bet your customers just love that you're not just showing it here's what we have, buy it or not. You're actually listening, and their feedback is impacting your roadmap and the products you develop.
Well, the thing about that is, and that comes from gaming, right? So what I always hated was there's a lot of innovative products out there, but I got stuck with what Foxwoods wanted to do, right? It wasn't my inventory process. It was built for someone with 8,000 games or whatever the case may be, or someone that was in the California market. And so it did what I wanted it to, but didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So it's like, how can we, and I understand, I mean, when you're talking the volume that these big organizations are in, you're never going to have a one-of-a-kind solution. But the more that we could incorporate, all these various, perspectives and needs into one product, the better it would ultimately be for everyone, while trying to maintain that simplicity, which is what, really we're known for with our customer base, is being able to install and be up and running in, 4 weeks and have everyone trained in an hour or 2 hours, right? So that really is what we're aiming for.
So I'm going to ask you a question that is a little bit self-serving, because we're both in a similar space in that you guys are a few years ahead of us in that you came in, you were attacking a problem in a different way, right? You talked about in the slot space, big budgets. So it's not like it's a total blue ocean. There's a lot of companies in there, but you guys were going after a different problem than what they were attacking. And I know in previous conversation, we talked about like, how did you figure out how to explain what you do, since you're not A, what everybody else is doing, or B, what these other people are doing. You guys were something totally different. We're running into that with Trio, where every time I'm kind of trying a new pitch to see if it's like explaining it the right way. So maybe walk through like, how did you kind of settle into a sales process that is clearly working based on, how fast you guys are growing?
Sure. So I think for us, it's not necessarily this like static, repeatable process, right? And it really, again, like everything else, it starts with the mind frame. So for us, and for where we're at, where we were, and where we're at now, is it's not about volume, right? So for us, it's about the right kind of volume. So we're looking for input and we're looking for advocates. So we're not necessarily trying to sell everybody that we're talking to. We're trying to expose them to what it is that we're doing. And, there's plenty of suggestions, there's plenty of feedback, there's plenty of, we can't do this right now, but maybe in the future. And that's led to so many business opportunities, right? So really, I approach the demo as a conversation, right? It's less about the functionality of our system and more about what's happening in these various gaming jurisdictions and what's happening day to day in terms of these operations, and how potentially we can plug some of those holes for them. Right. And so once we kind of establish that as our groundwork, then it's really about searching. Right. So I said not volume, but the right kind of volume. So for us, really, because we're doing something new we're trying to be disruptive, and it's not something that is easily comparable to anyone else. And traditionally, these things have been done either through labor or paper or various mechanisms. We had to find the innovators. Right? We had to find the people that were not only trying to push their property to another level and push their market to another level, but by extension, we're pushing the whole industry forward. Right? And so we did that through, a series of mechanisms, whether it was reaching out to acquaintances, both current, past, and everywhere in between, and going, do you look at what we're doing? Do you know anyone who might think this is interesting or cool? And then even on LinkedIn, I mean, getting on LinkedIn, trying to connect with as many targeted people as we can, seeing what they're engaging with, seeing what they're sharing, seeing what they're trying to be to their particular market. And it's very easy to find. I mean, it's not very easy to find those people, but they're there. You just got to look, right? And so the reason we want to, be in business with those people is those are the properties that are already of the mindset that they want to continually push, where the industry is going. They're going to get the most out of Slot Track. They're going to push us to be our best. And we're going to not only get a great story out of that, they're going to see huge gains out of it because I'm not convincing them to put my product in, right? They're hungry for the product. They just need a solution. And so we conducted the search. Now it's about meaningful engagement, right? When we reach out to them, it's about learning what they're trying to achieve. Again, not talking about the features of my product, but talking about the end result. What exactly are they trying to come up with and how do we fit into that? We show the product, we show the ROI, and then we really settle in for the long haul. We don't close sales in weeks or months. It's going to take 4, 6 months, 2 years, right? And what we get a lot, and I've told you this before, is we'll engage with somebody and they'll be so excited and ready to do stuff. And then, unforeseen circumstances or daily operations come into play. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, I get a call that goes, "We're ready." I go, "Now?" They're like, "Yeah, right now." And so, that's just kind of the ebb and flow of things. And really, that's really what we're trying to put into place. So, spend time with your customers, I guess, is the very short answer to that long-winded methodology.
No, I think I like one thing that stood out to me too is you're like, I've got an innovative product that slow movers are not going to jump on, right? There's going to be people in this industry that are just, unless 80% of the casinos are using it, I'm not going to do it. But right. I like how you said you're looking for the innovators in different markets, and you have different ways of figuring out like who's innovative, what are they posting, what are they liking, like who maybe has an appetite for innovation, and then you just approach them and say like, we got some innovative stuff. Here's what it is. And you open a conversation. So I think that's a really smart approach. I like it.
Yeah, it's worked well for us. And like I said, not only that, it's been a lot of fun, right? I mean, like I like to break stuff as much as I'm, trying to focus in one area. And I think that's a bit of a struggle for me because I want to chase every idea down and I want to build everything. My dev team goes crazy. Dustin's always like, "What did you promise now?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about what I'm promising. Just go build some stuff. We'll figure it out later." But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun working with people that want to do things totally different, and you see them in their own environments just trying to break out. So being able to be a part of their story and really, we're not doing anything besides giving them a tool, right? It's like seeing someone that was knocking down a wall with a rock, and then you give them a jackhammer, and then you're like, "Whoa, watch them go." It's crazy.
How has COVID accelerated or slowed down technology adoption in casino space?
Well, I mean, I think it's had like a double-edged impact, right? I mean, you can look at it. It's obviously we were slated for quite a bit of installs before the world stopped spinning, so it did affect us that way. But we were still able to not only grow the current customer base and what we were offering to each one of our existing clients, but we were able to bring some new people into the fold and some big ones too. So I don't think it stopped anybody. I think that it's really given us an opportunity to kind of look at what the core business was and find efficiencies and leverage technology as much as we can to become more efficient and protect the bottom line. Now, that being said, I've been surprised at the amount of capital outlay that's been dedicated towards innovation. And I think it's a great thing, right? I believe that, gaming, like you said earlier, it's not that we're totally slow like molasses, but we lag behind general, technology in other spaces. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one being is there's some very big players that move at their own pace. And so there's not a ton of competition to do things, at an extremely high rate of speed. The second thing is, we're in an industry where compliance and safeguards are put in place for a reason. And so we have to we have this metered approach to growth, right, and to innovation. But what's been interesting is, the biggest thing to me is you look at things like cashless adoption. That's something that the industry and players have been pushing forward forever. And for various regulatory, ethical, and other things, that's it's been kind of move forward, but while holding you by the shirt. Well, COVID changed that, right? So in order to make people feel safe, we had to do things differently than we'd ever done them before. And so to me, it proved that gaming can innovate and still adhere to compliance and regulatory and ethical, standards that we need to hold ourselves to, but we could innovate and innovate very quickly. And you look at the things that people are doing, and it's really amazing.
So Juan, is there anything you're excited about or anything that's on the horizon that you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that, the biggest thing to me is, getting out there, meeting with people like you and your organization. I think there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of people that have, from a provider side are going to survive this tumultuous period in gaming along with the operators, right? And I think that it's going to bring opportunities to really shift our mindset. So I don't know that there's a product in general or a functionality that I'm excited about, but I'm excited about the environment in general and kind of what we can, now that we've quote unquote seen what we're made of on every aspect. I'm really excited that, hopefully when the world starts spinning correctly again, we'll all be able to take off full speed. So I think that's the biggest thing right now.
So Juan, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, and I imagine anybody that's in the slot world in the casino industry, probably, if they're not working with you already, they probably want to learn more. So how can they learn more about Volante, and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can email us at sales@Volante Software, or you can go to our website at volantesoftware.com and learn all about Slot Track and what it is that we're trying to put together. And yeah, we love talking to people. Like I said, it's about the engagement, right? Because every single conversation we have, we benefit from it, whether it's a sale or not. It's only making the product better. It's connecting what we're trying to do with the people that are doing things on a day-to-day basis.
Well, Juan, thank you so much for your time. Like I told you before, I said at the beginning of the conversation, I love talking to other entrepreneurs and people doing cool things in the casino space. So I know you're busy. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing what you're doing, you and your team at Volante.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we appreciate the opportunity, and we appreciate the ability to interface with you and your organization. So look forward to next time.
Absolutely. We'll do it again soon. Maybe when the world starts spinning normally again, we could revisit and see where we're at.
Yeah, take two, right?
Take two.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Juan.
Appreciate it.